My father planned to move in my nephews with me without my knowledge. I don't know if this is the right sub for this, but in this moment, as the only blood-related woman on my father's side of the family, it feels gendered. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. A few days ago, my dad came over to my house for the first time in quite a while. I've had a lot of renovations done since he last saw the place when we first moved in. I have a nervous system condition, which, while very fortunate to be able to manage it in such a way that it usually doesn't impact my life most days out of any given month, they can render simple tasks very difficult for me when I'm having a flare. It's also important as a part of managing my condition and maintaining my high level of function to limit certain activities which can bring about a crash or a flare. My husband is also disabled. He has hypermobile EDS. So together we made a list of things we'd love to have as accommodations in the home we share. And we either did those things or found contractors to do them for us. I am really happy with the results. I find that these accommodating renovations make my life a lot easier. I have fewer crashes and overall more energy. My husband is elated with how much more functional he can be after we made these changes. My father isn't a fan. He thinks it all makes the house too weird. He's worried about the resale value, and we're not even planning on selling anytime soon. He had a lot of comments when he came over. In fact, it was almost all he talked about. I kept trying to gently tell him that this is just what works for us and then divert the subject, but he was getting a bit worked up, which isn't really like him in those types of situations. The plan for his visit was he'd come over, meet my foster dog that he might adopt, and take the dogs for a walk and then get lunch. When I left him alone for a minute to go use the bathroom, after we'd walked the dogs, I came back out and found that he'd attempted to pull one of our accommodating mechanisms out of the kitchen wall. He hadn't caused any functional damage, but he did cause aesthetic damage in that it will now need to be repainted. I was shocked and kind of hysterical in my reaction, and I raised my voice at him when I saw what he was doing. I think I yelled, "What the F are you doing, Dad? What's your problem?" He responded, "I just wanted to see if it was removable. Sorry, it's just too weird, it's too weird. It's just not going to work when Billy and Bobby move in with you." Billy and Bobby are my nephews, my brother's children. I have never invited them to stay with me, let alone move in for any amount of time, and I've never been asked to do so. Even in the event that my brother and sister-in-law passed away in some tragic manner, to my knowledge, I should be very far down a very long list of people who could be asked to take those kids in before I would be asked. So I was pretty shocked that my dad would say something like that out of the blue, and with so much frustrated emotion about Billy and Bobby moving in, because there's no reason to my knowledge for anyone to think that would possibly be happening. I asked him to clarify repeatedly, but he just waved it off and told me forget he said anything. He didn't want to talk about it. I pressed him. All he said was, "Well, honey, it's a massive house. You have room for 2 boys. When I asked him why he would even bring it up though and clarified that not only did I have absolutely no desire to host my nephews for a visit, let alone for them to move in, he clammed up again and just said, "Forget I ever said anything." He apologized for damaging my home, immediately transferred a larger sum than necessary to me via Zelle to fix the scratch he'd made, then took me out to lunch, as we planned prior. The rest of the day with him was pretty normal, and I guess I was just a little shocked or something because I didn't bring it up again. But now that it's been a few days, I can't get it out of my head, and I'm so annoyed. First of all, my dad hasn't ever been, and would never be that aggressive about any decoration or renovation in my brother's homes. He just wouldn't, and I can't help but feel that he is less respectful of my home because I'm a woman, which sucks. But more upsetting and confusing is what the F was he talking about in terms of my nephews. Is my family conspiring in some way to move those kids in with me? It wouldn't be the first time that my family assumed I'd take care of those kids without asking me first. But in the past, it was just babysitting, and I have directly told everyone that even that is unacceptable. So I would be really shocked if my brother or sister-in-law thought that was acceptable. And we have some comments from Op. To my knowledge, my brother isn't looking to move his kids out of his own home either. They are sometimes difficult kids, a little delayed and a lot of entitled and enabled behaviour. In the past, they've leaned heavily on family for childcare since my brother has a demanding job and my sister-in-law has a hard time being alone with her kids. When I lived with my dad, I was a big part of that equation, and ended up being more responsible for those kids than I'd have agreed to, because I wasn't in control of telling them if they could bring the kids over, as it was my father's house. Even when I still lived with my dad, I was able to establish some boundaries and assert that I wouldn't agree to care for them on demand, and that was generally respected after I put my foot down a few times. Another commenter says, "I would definitely try to get more info from your dad, but failing that, it wouldn't be bad to talk to your brother. It seems like a really out-of-pocket thing to say unless he has some serious information you don't." Op says, "It's incredibly out of pocket. Not only do I not want those kids to live with me, but I also would assume that my brother wouldn't want his kids to live with me. There are a million reasons why, but chiefly, it wouldn't be a good idea safety-wise for those kids. I've been dealing with a stalker for years who has already threatened me that she would harm my nephews, at which point I distanced myself from Billy and Bobby. I stopped picking them up from school and stuff, and the threats directed at them stopped. Currently, I'm working on taking legal action, but nothing is set in stone. And even the idea of those kids who are difficult, but who I also love very much being in my home makes me worried that they would be directly targeted, or that there would be some escalation. I actually can't imagine that my family would think it's a good idea to move those kids in with me. Like I can't imagine circumstances where that would seem appropriate. A commenter says, yeah, particularly given that information. But even without it, it's hard to imagine your brother or sister-in-law would want or expect you to take care of their kids, short of some kind of serious health or relationship emergency. And even then, that wouldn't be something for your dad to be concerned about unless he's a particularly worrying person. Op says, even if there's an emergency, I simply cannot be the first person on their list to take those kids in. I'm the only younger female blood relative, I guess, but there are so many other relatives and family friends who need to come before me on that list. My brother and sister-in-law have a massive village, so I'm talking dozens. It's baffling to me that it would come down to me to take care of those kids in any circumstances. Commenter says the fact that he was actively trying to tear your house apart is a huge red flag. My bet is your brother is getting a divorce, and they were just going to dump them on you, since his job is so demanding. Dang, did not think about that. Yeah, well, I'm still trying to piece the parts together here. This puzzle is very confusing. It's very all over the place where I'm like, no one's telling you anything. Your father's not telling you anything, and he has definitely some information that he's hiding. Yeah, and I guarantee you, like, oh, the missing puzzle piece here is just Op letting the nephew stay with you. And that's going to fit right there. It's going to be perfect. There is so much going on here that does not make sense. Well, because you're also, she's disabled, so is your partner. Yeah, so it's like I feel like that is the reason that she's like, why am I should be down low, I am disabled, I have to take care of myself and my partner, we're taking care of each other. I don't necessarily have the capability to take care of 2 children. No, what are we talking about, and no one's asking, they're just assuming, I think, and you know what Dad's vibe is. I think Dad's vibe is like, no, you're putting all this stuff in the house, it's unnecessary. Sometimes people just don't believe that things are real. Like it's if you have a disability or you have an issue, if it's not something you can just see, like it's like your leg is messed up. If it's like, oh, my nerves are wrong and it causes me to be in pain. There's certain people who will be like, yeah, but are you? It's like, anyway, he's given me some of that energy. Yeah. I'm going to keep reading, My father planned to move in my nephews with me without my knowledge, Op says in response to maybe they're divorced. Honestly, I feel like an effing idiot that the 2 of them getting divorced hadn't even crossed my mind. Not that they have an actively bad marriage or anything, but I think their dynamic is weird, and I guess I wouldn't be shocked. Thank you for this insight. I mean, either way, it's a no from me for various reasons. Commenter says, better yet, group text them. Guys, I'm worried about Dad. He came over the other day and kind of flipped out about our disability accommodations and tried to rip one off of the wall. And then he thought Billy and Bobby were coming to live here but couldn't explain why. I'm worried. Has anyone else noticed strange aggressive behavior? Op says, I think I'll go with this, but on a call. I want to hear a response in real time. My dad has normalized triangulation, a bit too much in this family for my comfort. How old is your dad? Could he be having a sort of mental episode that he thinks your nephews are supposed to move in with you? Barring that, I'd ask your brother, hey, do you have any idea why Dad would say this is something going on? Op says he's in his 70s, but he's still sharp enough to be working. I asked my older brother nebulously without mentioning the reason why, who works with my dad every day if he'd noticed any decline. He said Dad seems sharp as ever in their work environment. It's pretty mentally demanding work, so I think it would be evident there. I'll also note, though, my dad rejected an OCD diagnosis when he was in therapy after my parents' divorce. So he's not without any history of mental illness. Not sure if that would cause this behavior, though. Commenter said, if this is a new development, it may be a UTI. Symptoms of an undiagnosed UTI can mimic early-stage dementia, and UTIs can have no physical symptoms like burning or pain during urination in the early stages. Look up silent UTIs. Op said, oh crap, Dad has gotten several UTIs before. Just Googled it and I had no clue that they could be silent or that they could impact cognition. Is your dad okay with your and your husband's disabilities? Sounds ableist, like he was trying to remove the reminder of your disability, and then came up with a nonsensical excuse after the fact. Op says, my dad is in utter denial that I'm disabled. He only briefly accepted when my symptoms were severe and I couldn't work. But after I started my own business, he's basically just been totally averse to the idea that I need to manage my symptoms, and thinks I'm being dramatic. And then people asking several questions about the stalker. It's okay. Hope he says she's someone I used to be friends with. And honestly, it's my bad because I hung in there even when I realized she was becoming mentally unstable. She became fixated on my husband when he and I began dating, and I became the enemy in her eyes. And Dad does not take the stalking seriously at all. This woman has stalked him too and done property damage to his house. Update. I talked to my brother on the phone about the situation, and he expressed that he had absolutely no idea why our father would imply that Billy and Bobby would need to move in with me at any point. He seemed genuinely surprised, and to have no clue what the heck Dad was talking about. He claims to have absolutely never expressed anything like that to our dad. I believe him. I asked him if there was any possible reason at all that Dad would think that I'd need to take in my nephews. Like, is there some problem Dad thinks he's pre-solving without consulting either of us? Is there an illness or impending divorce or anything I don't know about? My brother assured me that there is nothing like that going on, and that, as I assumed, I of course, wouldn't even be near the top of the list of permanent caregivers, even if something was going on, because he knows I run 2 businesses out of my house, and also just am not up for taking his kids in, unless I'm the absolute last safe resort. Both of us are in agreement, as is our older brother, that Dad generally doesn't seem to have any other signs that we've noticed of declining cognitive function. But since this was such a strange outburst, we're still concerned that this is just the earliest sign. My brother, Billy and Bobby's dad, is going to talk to our dad about it ASAP and see what he says or what explanation he can give, and then we'll go from there. So, unfortunately, my brother and my brother has volunteered to go first, are going to have to confront him by essentially saying, Dad, it's really important that you're honest about whether you are confused or intentionally lying, triangulating, or manipulating. Because that's the difference between us freaking out about your health versus us just understanding that sometimes you lie to push your agenda. But your brain is fine. Thank you to everyone who gave me feedback here. You are all so sweet and supportive, except that one guy who for some reason was very convinced that I didn't pay for my own home and commented several times and DM'd me about it. I did pay for my home. And it's solely in my name, weirdo. We have comments here. Strange situation all around. If he has a history of weird fixations, that would be the cause I would lean towards. OCD can worsen with age, so it's possible that his symptoms' severity is worse. Or he's having more trouble with impulse control as he ages, causing him to act on his urges and verbalize them. But I doubt Dad is going to give up or her brother any straight answers. That was my take as well. I bet his determination to deny Op's disability is conflicting with his OCD in a big way. It's no coincidence that he tried to damage one of their disability aids. All that nonsense about resale value and her nephews was him throwing out whatever BS he could think of to cover up how upset he was getting from seeing the assistive devices he wants to ignore but can't. Another reply, it could be dementia, but it also sounds like massive ableism coinciding with OCD. Having a disability is bad. Having visible signs of accommodation is bad. If I remove the accommodation, the bad will go away. I must remove this right effing now and I can't do anything else until it's gone. Oh no, I've been caught doing something wrong and I can't defend my reasoning. Make something up. Double down. Also at 70, he's definitely feeling the mobility limitations and seeing the renovations may have triggered something out of pure projection. We're going to read the last comment. You know what? I don't think this is about resale value or about Billy and Bobby moving in. I think it's just an ableist dad seeing disability aids as an eyesore and trying to BS his way out of it. And that's the end of that story. I, 24 female, and my husband, 23 male, do not get along with my older brother-in-law's wife at all. For the purpose of the story, I'll refer to the brother-in-law's wife as Kate. But it's a name change, obviously. For starters, when I met my husband, so now husband, brother-in-law and Kate had already been dating for over a year. When I came along, my husband was dating someone else. So husband has an ex. Ooh. When he wasn't your husband that no one really liked. This is relevant, I swear. We were all teenagers at the time and this girl, husband's ex, was one of those overly clingy girls, and you could tell that this was her first real relationship. When I came along, my husband was already trying to break up with her, but she was using the don't leave me or I'll hurt myself tactic again, which is nuts. Yeah, and she's a little nuts. Anyway, Kate really hated this girl like screaming matches. So this is the brother-in-law's wife, hated husband's ex. When they are around each other, kind of mutual hate. Once I started to get to know my husband, and at the time this was not her husband, this was just some guy that was dating a girl, we started crushing on each other pretty hard, and our work messages turned more flirty and his girlfriend actually messaged me to stop talking to him. I screenshotted the messages between my husband's ex. And me basically her being like, stop talking to my boyfriend, and sent it to my now husband and asked if I was crossing a line. Apparently when he started to message me on his own and flirt more, he had already tried to dump her, and she was hanging around anyway. Well, news got out that I was the reason their relationship ended. So the relationship between Op's husband and his ex ended. And Kate, brother-in-law's wife, used it as a chance to really get the girlfriend away. Kate invited the two of us out together to spend more time together and really tell his ex that they were over. Here's where the issue with me and Kate starts. It wasn't until 2 weeks after my husband and I started dating and announced the news to everyone that she started to hate me. I'd learned later that I was supposed to get them to break up, not start dating my husband because Kate wanted to set her sister up with him. Oh, interesting, spoiler. I talked to the sister years later and she had no idea where this was coming from. She didn't even have a crush on my husband. From that moment on, she really laid it on thick. Kate did, how much he disliked me. Kate would mumble insults under my breath, tell my in-laws in private that I was a bad person, and tried to start a smear campaign against me so my husband would break up with me. It clearly didn't work. I actually was really bummed about all this because I didn't have a sister. I was looking forward to having a sisterly bond or relationship with Kate. And when that went the other direction, I went up to her in private at a family dinner and told her I was sorry if I had ever done anything to upset her, but that I really liked my husband and was hopping her, and I could at least be friends. Or she stormed out after calling me a witch, and that made my in-laws really see her as someone different. I got closer to them this way and they were amazing. And they were amazing to me, but iced her out, Kate that is, because of her actions from that day on. She's continued to get them to hate me behind my back, but they aren't falling for it anymore. Instead, she went overboard and played a prank on my husband that backfired. I won't go into detail about the prank, but let's just say it didn't go as planned for anyone, and it involved him and his ex potentially doing something inappropriate that caused my husband to nearly be fired and charged if it wasn't proved to be wrong. Of course, those involved in said prank didn't fess up to it from how sour it went. By accident, one of the people involved let it slip to me that it was a prank and how Kate had been the mastermind behind it, of course. I told my husband right away as I thought he had the right to know. It didn't go anywhere from there, but he was extremely pissed, and what was left of his relationship with Kate crumbled. Well, he was extremely pissed, and what was left of the relationship with Kate crumbled. Now he wanted nothing to do with her ever. I thought he told his parents to help clear his name, but when I made a joke a year later to him and his parents about her pranks never being funny and ended up worse, they asked me what I meant. At this point, Kate and brother-in-law were engaged. And when I told them about the prank and how it was all Kate's idea, they apparently told brother-in-law and asked him if he was seriously dating someone who did something so awful to not just a human being, but to his brother of all people. This caused a huge rift between brother-in-law and his family after they were married. So they still got married. The passive aggression and backhanded
Brother-in-law
comments
and
came
Kate
back sort of
quickly.
dropped everyone.
It wasn't until I got
with me
pregnant
and
a
my
couple
husband
months
who saw
later
her
after
as the
her
only
announcement
evil
that
and
she
cruel
went off
one
at
at
this
this
point.
point.
She
She started
started
acting
acting
like
like
she was helping me
only
by
telling me what I
more
needed
and
to be
more,
doing
when she
what
hadn't
needed to be
kid
read
shit.
or get.
But
Kate
I only
when their kid
smiled
would talk to
and
me
told
all
her
like
like
being
being
around
around
me,
me. I had always worked with
She
kids,
hated I wasn't
so
looking
I
up
will
to her
brag
and
about
taking
being
her
good
advice
small
as well.
children.
Trigger
How they
warning
tend
for
to like
expecting
being
mothers
pissed
for
her
what
off.
I'm about to
When
say.
husband and I got
When I
married,
wasn't taking
she
her
tried
words
to play
seriously
nicely
or
or
treating
treating
her
her
like a
like
queen
any
anyway,
more than me, but it
didn't
didn't
last
last long.
long.
Her
Her
passive
passive
aggression
aggression
smoother
and
and
backhanded
her comments
comments
came
came
back
back
quickly.
quickly.
As well as having the gender she wanted, she flipped out. Kate started telling me horror birth stories about what could go wrong, how one of her friends nearly passed away, and warned me everything that could happen. I knew she was saying it to scare me, but I was freaked out a little. When I was about 7 months along, she started having bad issues and was telling me to look out for certain signs, and I told her I wasn't having any problems or serious symptoms like she was experiencing. With a bit of rage in her eyes when we were alone in the same room, she told me to be careful because first-time pregnancies usually end in miscarriage or stillborn because I don't know what to expect. The chances were higher for me, and this really did it for me. I stood up. I told her to go F herself loud enough for everyone in the room to overhear, and told my husband we were leaving. I cried so hard and booked an appointment for the next day to check on my baby because I was so scared. My husband told his parents what was said after, and I bawled my eyes out to him. I was born with the umbilical cord around my neck and passed away for 2 minutes, so I was already freaking the heck out. To say my in-laws were disgusted and pissed, she'd say that to me was an understatement. Everyone was sort of mad at her after that, and from then on, I didn't acknowledge Kate or care for her at all. My husband referred to Kate as that witch my brother married to our friends and family, and I'd correct him telling him to be nice to his wife, but not anymore. Now I referred to her as such, and when talking about my baby, she was uncle's wife, never to be called aunt, as she does not deserve the title. Well, me ignoring her only made things worse as Kate started complaining about anything and everything people did for me. If my in-laws bought something for us, she'd complain that they were picking favourites. Already something she said about me and my husband being their favourites, so it wasn't new. If they asked me about our baby, she'd get mad. I dared to say I was looking forward to something or enjoying the princess treatment by my husband and my side of the family. Once I asked my husband to refill my drink, I was constantly thirsty while pregnant. I smiled at him and said, please, in the nicest way I could, since it was hot, and I was already asking him for so much help being as far along as I was. Instead of rolling his eyes, my husband kissed my head, then my belly and said, yeah, what did you have in mind? Like I said, some serious princess treatment. It sounds like Op is getting the princess treatment, which is good. Then a few seconds later, brother-in-law walked in and she told him to get her more water, and he had some excuse about being in the middle of something. It was really awkward after that. More so since my husband took that time to walk back with a drink and say here you go, love. Yikes. After the Barbies were born, there were some added complications with her birth, resulting in her baby being underweight. Nothing dangerously of high concern, just not what parents want to hear. My baby, on the other hand, was in the high 80 percentiles, so they were pretty big, weighing and being only slightly taller than their cousin born a month earlier. I love all the comparison. When their oldest wanted to hold her baby, Kate told them, careful, your cousin is smaller, well, technically only younger. To make fun of my big baby, I only rolled my eyes, but my mother-in-law said something about my baby being happy and healthy, which pissed Kate off even more. Kate already hated me because she never really made an effort with my husband, and is now angry with my kid for existing. I don't acknowledge her. I don't say hi, I don't look in her direction and completely ignore her when she's around. I say hi and talk to brother-in-law and their kids, but that is it. I no longer go out of my way to try to be nice to her or include her on anything. I wish things were different, and I know it would be easier on my in-laws if we did get along, but they understand and don't push it on me to make changes. They actually tell me that I don't owe her anything since I've tried to play nice for so long already. I feel bad sometimes as I know she doesn't have a lot of friends or support system like I do, but she brought that upon herself. I also really hope our relationship doesn't affect our kids one day, even though that's wishful thinking. As much as I know, it's easier on everyone to keep playing along with the narrative. We at least can stand to be in the same room together. I can't bring myself to do it anymore. Not a smile, not a wave, not a head nod. Nothing, am I the a-hole?